All right, guys, let's talk about organic molecules and how we build and break them down. So I want to talk about organic molecules today. Now remember, organic molecules, these are things that contain carbon inside, because that's every living thing is organic and every living thing has to have carbon. But the deal is with living things inside our living systems, we have to build certain things to live, and we also have to break down certain things. And so what I'm going to cover today is how we build and how we break. So let's do build first. Build is actually way easier to understand. So if I want to build something, this is called dehydration. Okay, this is a dehydration reaction or dehydration synthesis. So let's do word roots. D means un or not, and hydrate is referring to water. And synthesis means to make. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to make something by undoing water inside. So in the roughest translations we can do. All right, so let's try this out. Also, this is called a condensation reaction. But that makes sense because condensation is when I take gaseous water and I make it into, not just H2O, but when I make it into liquid water, which is kind of what we're going to do today. All right, so let's build something. Let's start with easy molecules. All right, if you watch the organic chem video, we know that this is a carbon ring, and we know that there's carbons at every point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Deal. And then coming off of that, let's have a hydroxyl group, and we'll keep it like that. Now, this is one single thing. This is a monomer. Remember, a monomer. And so if I'm going to take my monomers and I'm going to build something, that means I'm going to take my monomers and build them into a polymer, because a polymer is just repeating units. So I have one monomer right here, and let's build another, or let's make another. So here's this guy, and we're going to make them identical, or pretty identical. There you go. So I have some hydroxyl groups on this side here. I'll stick another one over here just for fun. There you go, identical molecules. Now what I want to do is I want to add these together. And how I add them together is by looking at the one element we keep focusing on, which is oxygen, okay? Now oxygen is super duper negative. And since he's super duper negative and hydrogen is easy to get rid of, this oxygen, when he gets really close to this molecule, we'll see this carbon over here, because carbon's a little bit easier to attach to, right? Remember, carbon can have 4 bonds. And so this oxygen, who's really, really negative, sees this carbon over here, and he's like, you know what? I'd rather be with him. So what he does is he's going to break apart from this hydrogen. Because if you have a couple, right, boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, and one of those people starts talking to somebody else, that's going to cause them to break up. All right, so if you've broken a hydrogen off, and now that the carbon over here is talking to this oxygen, that's going to make these guys break up. And if you have that, so you have a hydrogen and a hydroxyl group, that's 1, 2 H's, and then 1 O. So I just made H2O. And when that happens, so now I'm going to look at this oxygen, and he's going to start going out with this guy. So now I just build my molecules again. No, it's not the same color, but it's really close. So here's my thing, and I think I had a hydroxyl group right there. Now I still have this bond, because that's this right here, and I have the oxygen. But now instead of the oxygen being attached to that hydrogen, he's attached to this carbon over here. There you go. So kind of a far stretch, and then a hydroxyl group. So now I had two single things. I had one, I had two, and now I just built this into a big polymer, because poly means more than one unit. So I just made a polymer, and as a result, because I lost this water up here, I get water as a product as well. All right, so now if we can build stuff, guess what? We can break things just as easily. And when I break something, this is called hydrolysis. And if I look at word roots, hydro means water, lysis means to break, and we know that we like to read science words backwards, so I'm going to break something using water. So I can take that molecule I just built, so let's make it again. And then I have the oxygen holding them together. So now, if I add water to it, again, this oxygen right here being super duper important, because he's negative, he likes to steal things. He likes to take things away. So when this water comes floating by, this oxygen is going to see that hydrogen and is like, you know what? I'd rather be bound to him. So that hydrogen is going to hook up right there to this oxygen, which will leave me an O and an H. And so then that O and the H will attach to that guy. So then, here's my molecule. And that oxygen wanted the hydrogen, so there he is. So that's where one of the hydrogens came from the water. And because the oxygen had to let go of that carbon, now the other hydroxyl or the other OH can be right there. So I just went from a polymer, which is many repeating units, and then I broke it down into individual monomers, right? And so when we do hydrolysis reactions, hydrolysis would be a lot like digestion, right? Because you guys are breaking things down. Or if you guys break the glycogen inside your liver down to glucose, so that way you can do cell respiration, that would be a hydrolysis reaction. Versus up here for dehydration, this is when I want to build things. So maybe I have too much glucose inside my body and I want to build it into glycogen. Or maybe plants, right? A lot of glucose. Plants make glucose during photosynthesis, and maybe they want to store that as starch, so that way they can have an energy reserve later. But that's how we build things. So build things is by dehydration, and really I'm just taking away water. So I made water, and then I join things together, and then hydrolysis is when I use water to break them apart. Hope that helps.